All right, welcome in another Saturday of the Johnston RV Center Saturday preview, johnstonrvcenter.com. He is Jim Dunaway. I am Ryan Brown. As you might imagine, Lance Taylor in New Orleans not going to be with us today. I mean, there have been some Saturdays, Dunaway, where back porch looks like it's been a long night when he's with us on Saturday morning. I cannot imagine what a day after a Friday night in New Orleans might look like.
I got one text.
Oh, wow.
I got one text that was like at 3:30 from them. They were somewhere. So yeah, I would imagine it's a long day for them a little bit. So yes.
I would imagine it's a long day. Every day in Vegas, it's the Vegas of the South, I guess, a little bit, but every day in New Orleans feels like a long day to me. That city wears on you a little bit. It's heavy food. It's just a lot of noise and stuff. If you drink, it's a lot of drinking. It's just a lot, man. That's a lot for me, New Orleans.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan in the world, if I'm being honest with you.
Well, I think I experienced it. I've experienced it many times, but I think the best New Orleans trip of all time was for the 2011 season, the January 2012 national championship game between Alabama and LSU. And that was so many fans there. You couldn't even walk on the sidewalks for a couple of days. It was just such a great atmosphere. And to me, that was the best trip to New Orleans for me ever. But I've never gone to legit Mardi Gras or legit Jazz Fest, which I hear is a great time.
I haven't either. That trip you were talking about when Alabama played LSU 2011, I'll never forget it. I think you had gone down before me and Lance because of TV. I think you were down a little bit earlier than us. Like maybe we got there on a Monday, you were there on a Saturday or something like that. And I remember you telling us, "Hey, this place is just out of control down here."
Crawling.
Crawling. And Lance and I drove down, and I'll never forget giving my vehicle to the valet and going in, checking in, doing all that. And then we got out for the first time. I think in 30 minutes, I went 2 city blocks. And I turned around and I drove back to the valet and I handed him the keys and I said, "Put this in the back of the lot and I'll pick it up when I leave." I'm not
January
anywhere
2nd.
else. That's right.
Yeah.
I'll pick it up when I leave. Everything else is Uber, taxi, or walk. And that was our trip. That might even been pre-Uber. I think that was taxi because I think I remember. You know what else I remember for that trip? And I think for some reason, because I'm terrible at deleting phone numbers, we met this cab. This is so Lance, but we met this cab driver named Dino. And I think I've still got his number in here. And he was like, "Hey, anywhere you want to go, just call me. Don't get a cab. Just call me. I'm going to cover up his number." But there, you see, look, Dino, New Orleans cab. You see that?
Yeah. Let's see if I've got him.
Still got his number in there. That's from 2011. And I'll never forget. He's like, "Anywhere y'all want to go, just text me. Just call me." So we would call him, and he would come pick us up. And he knew all the the roads around, so you didn't sit in traffic and all that. I don't know that I've ever used that number again, but from 2011, that is so random that I remember that. But from 2011, I've got Dino New Orleans cab.
That's amazing. I like that a lot.
Hey,
I do not have it. I had it at some point, but I do not have it anymore. I've deleted that number somehow.
How random would it be if we show up and text Dino and he's like, "My boys are back. It's been a minute." Hey, welcome into the JohnstonRVCenter.com Saturday preview. We thank you for joining us on YouTube. If you're there, please give us a thumbs up wherever you are, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Make sure you subscribe. More than 10,000 subscribers and growing on YouTube. We appreciate you doing that. Set your alerts as well so you know when we're live, including today's post game, which Dunaway, I'm assuming we'll do after the Victory Bell game, right? That's probably the main game I want to watch today.
Yeah, USC, UCLA. That should be fun. What is that, 7 o'clock on Fox?
7 o'clock Fox, yeah.
I say we make a call and see how UAB's going at that point. I mean, if UAB looks like they may be pulling an upset on LSU, we may want to pause a little bit on that to see if that's still a competitive game.
Yeah, because that doesn't kick till late. You're right about that. Yeah,
that goes at 8 o'clock. I'll be watching that one. But if if LSU has that one in hand, we can go ahead and jump on as soon as the Victory Bell's over. Yep. But if that game is very competitive late, I say we wait and maybe celebrate a UAB upset too if that ends up shaking up the college football playoff world. Not many chances UAB gets to shake up the college football playoff world.
No, we'll 100% do that. That's a great call by you. But set your alerts so you know when we're live for that. Thank you for doing that on YouTube. Also, thank you to Johnston RV Center. I-65 exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur, always online, JohnstonRVCenter.com. That is JohnstonRVCenter.com. Still clearing out those 22s to make room for the 23s. So go get a great deal at JohnstonRVCenter.com. Also, thank you to Sterling and the gang at Champy's world famous fried chicken. Right next to Thompson High School, Dunaway's alma mater, who's on their way to another state championship after the win over Hoover last night. Absolutely. In dominating fashion. State championship game. Maybe not state championship, but state championship game. But 119 in Alabaster is where you find Champy's. Great for all your college football watch parties today. Also, don't forget to hit nextround.store and get all your gear from the Next Round, like this shirt, the hat Dunaway's got on, nextround.store, nextround.store. A few comments. Hey, this is going to be hard to squeeze an hour out of this one. I don't mind telling you, Dunaway. Not many great games today.
Well, I mean, you're doing a good job. We haven't done one game yet, and we're 6 minutes in, so that's how you fill time.
That's right. I'm not trying to fill time. We're just talking, man. I was going to do some comments here. NH3425, Thompson came to play with a vengeance last night. They did. What was that, 40-10? Is that right, Dunaway?
That was the final score, 40-10 against Powerhouse Hoover. And
that's right.
The problem is, since won, 3 in a row. But I do believe that, if I had to make a betting favorite, who won last night between Auburn and Central Phoenix City? Whoever won that game,
Auburn, if I'm not mistaken,
that's who I would make the slight favorite in the championship game.
Okay.
And they'll be playing at Jordan-Hare Stadium, I believe, if that's correct.
Home game
home
for
crowd,
Auburn. Yeah.
Home crowd advantage.
Yeah. Hunter says the smell of weed is out of control in New Orleans. Smells like a skunk all the time there.
Well, when's the last time you've been to Vegas? Same thing in Vegas, yes.
You know where it was bad, Dunaway? Do you remember how bad it was in Indianapolis? We were up there for Bama, Georgia last year, and everywhere we would go, anytime we were walking up to a hotel or a restaurant, it's all you could smell was weed. Yeah. And I don't know that it's legal there.
I don't either, and I don't know how legal it is in New Orleans compared to Vegas, where they actually have you don't have to be medicinal. I mean, you can just buy it anywhere in any store, and edibles, and they have dispensaries, and you can smoke it right outside on the sidewalk with no worries at all, and it is everywhere. And of course, in Vegas and New Orleans, those type places, you have everyone who they're on their vacation, they're on their guy trip or bachelor party or whatever. So they're trying to do whatever they can do to be crazy as hell.
Landmine Believer says Alabama may have a legit Wooden Award candidate this year. I watched a good bit of that game last night because they were playing my old school Jacksonville State, who hung with them for a minute. But man, when Alabama decided to play, that thing got over quick.
When Alabama basketball shoots well,
they did. Yeah.
They could beat anybody in the country. Now the problem is against Longwood and against South Alabama, they did not shoot well. But against a good Liberty team, and a Jack State team that's sort of rebuilding from an NCAA tournament team, they shot well and just ran them off the floor. So that team is long. Brandon Miller is unbelievable, but there are other players on that team. I think going into yesterday's game, the team had scored 256 points in 3 games, and 200 of them, maybe 220 of them, have been scored by newcomers. So it's a very different looking Alabama team. And I don't know about everyone else, but that's a refreshing thing to me.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about what that basketball team could do. And Auburn handled Winthrop last night at home. And both
Jalen Williams, Chris Moore, both scored 14 in that one.
Yeah. And so Auburn goes to Cancun, and Alabama goes to Portland to play Michigan State next. So it'll be a great gauge for Alabama real quickly to see where they are against one of the better teams in the country, Michigan State.
Yep. Brandon Miller, 28 points, 7 of 9 from beyond the arc. You let that guy shoot 7 of 9. I don't know how you stop him if he's 7 of 9 from beyond the arc. What are you going to do?
He's not quite as tall as Jabari Smith of Auburn last year.
But it's the same type of game.
Yep. Right. It's the same type of game. And, when I was talking to Nate Oates off the record one time, he is a guy who is not selfish at all, much like Jabari, would pass the ball a lot. But when he wants to create a shot, he can, no matter how well he's guarded because of his height and his ability to jump, you could have great defense on him and he can still get a shot up and off because of his reach and height and jumping ability. That's the kind of guy, who goes high in an NBA draft, but also the kind of guy you want in your team, because no matter how good the defense is, if you need a good shot to get off, he will take that shot for you.
Alabama 104-62 over Jacksonville State. Auburn 72-56 over Texas Southern. Those are your finals last night.
Yeah,
All
Jackson State,
right.
by the way, first team to score over 60 on Alabama this year, so they did creep over that 60 mark.
Fortunately, they gave up 104. So you got to score a few more at that point.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk some football games. We got one going at the top of the hour, actually, ESPN2. The line will tell you it's not that interesting of a game. UCF is playing host to Navy. They are favored 15.5 here at Dunaway, but UCF now is playing with that pressure of trying to make a New Year's Six bowl. They are the lead group of 5 candidate to be in one of the big bowl games. You don't know how that affects them. This is not a very good Navy team. But as always, Navy runs that style of football. They can make it tough on you. They did it against Notre Dame last week. That game went down to the wire. Notre Dame never could put them away. You wonder how Gus and Central Florida do today.
You do, and keep in mind that John Rice Plumlee is back healthy. He showed that last week, running for 178 yards in that big win, 38-31 over Tulane, as UCF got that win. So John Rice Plumlee is the engine that makes it go. But he's not just a runner. They've got really quality receivers, one from Alabama and a couple other transfers in, and I like this UCF team. I like what Gus has done. It's unfortunate they lost that game to East Carolina, but they're sitting there highly ranked, and I just wonder where their mindset is on an 11 o'clock Eastern kick, 10 a.m. Central body clock game for them, coming off their biggest win on the road of the year. We'll see how jumpy the bounce house is, but UCF's a much better team. They should win this one no problem today and keep their New Year's Six bowl hopes alive.
Michigan also at 11, ABC, 17.5-point favorites over Illinois. Several weeks ago, you looked at this game and you're like, okay, this Illinois team, the way they're playing under Brett Bielema a week before the Ohio State game, this is a potential trap game for Michigan. But the air is out of the Illinois balloon with a couple straight losses now. And what Illinois does well versus what Michigan does well, this to me feels like, and I'm in my pick 3, 17.5 is not enough here for Michigan. I think they can boat race them.
Yeah, because it starts with Michigan's defense, I think.
Yep.
Chase Brown of Illinois is a little banged up, so he's not 100%, even though he's statistically has been a better runner than Blake Corum. But Blake Corum is the guy, country-wise, one of the best runners in the country and really consistent. He put 162 on Nebraska last week. My concern with Michigan long-term, if they get into a game where someone can neutralize. I don't think anybody can shut their run game down, but if somebody can neutralize their run game, what can J.J. McCarthy and Ronnie Bell do? For instance, last week, 34-3 over Nebraska, they didn't have to throw the ball. J.J. McCarthy threw it for 129 yards. Ronnie Bell caught 72. So a lot of their schedule this year, they haven't had to throw the ball. If they have to throw the ball against Ohio State, if they have to throw the ball in the college football playoffs, how well will J.J. McCarthy be able to throw the ball? That could be what's sitting between Michigan and a Big Ten or a national championship. But this team has all the parts on defense. Their run game is unbelievable, and I don't think they have a problem with Illinois today.
In the SEC, also in that window, Texas A&M plays UMass. That's about as boring a game as you can imagine. But Florida has had Vanderbilt. 11 o'clock SEC Network, straight out of the chute for the SEC Network. 13.5, Florida is favored at Vandy. Vandy coming off their first conference win of the Clark Lee era at Kentucky. I think Florida's coming off some improved play. I mean, they played well at Texas A&M in that win there, and they played well against South Carolina at home. I actually I know Vandy's coming off the win, but I actually like the way this Florida team's playing right now.
They really are, but I will tell you how it's moved a little bit. It was 14.5 for most of the week. It's down to 13.5. One thing is that the crowd is not really a big benefit for Vanderbilt.
Nope.
Usually you have at least 50-50, if not more, of the visiting fans who come in to make that trip to Nashville. It's a fun trip for fans. But Mike Wright played so well last week, a conservative 184 throwing the football, but he runs the ball well. He's back healthy again. There's been something about this all week long that, Florida has put 2 good back-to-back games together. I don't know if they're at the point in their growth under Billy Napier, if they can go on the road and play a third straight B+ or better game which I think opens the door for Vandy to maybe cover this game, or dare I say, win their second straight SEC game in a row and be fighting for bowl eligibility going into the Tennessee game. I'll be watching that game a lot, just to see how much Vandy can keep that one close. I like Florida, but something about that line and something about the Florida trying to do that 3 weeks in a row that I'll be watching that game and see if Vandy can get win number 2.
You know, I just looking at it realistically, though, you've got to ask the question: Vandy has won one SEC game in 24 consecutive. Are they going to win back to back? I mean, that's the only thing. I see a little bit of what you're saying, though. Florida has scored 41 and 38 in their last 2 times out, so it looks like their offense is playing a lot better. The 41 coming on the road at A&M, so here they go on the road again. Just probability, Vandy winning this game. Maybe they get inside the number, but them winning probability-wise, very, very, very low.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But that's what makes it a big story, right? That's what makes it
that's right. There you go.
Newsworthy and worth watching is whether or not Vandy could pull that off.
Stuart asked, is Lance alive? Dunaway has had text with him. Is that what you were saying? A text conversation last night? Was that our last proof of life?
2:47 a.m.
So this morning. Were you awake?
I was awake at 2:47, yes. It doesn't mean I'd been awake. Doesn't mean I was awake continuously, though, Brown. I had
gotcha.
I had
bathroom break.
I had dozed off. No, I'd up here in the sports room. I had dozed off somewhere around 9 o'clock and had awakened and had just not been able to go back to sleep.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So that's our last proof of life. Was 2:47 this morning.
Yeah, the Thompson Hoover game had rocked me right to sleep. I'll tell you, Maggie made this meal with beef tips, swimming in some great gravy, mashed potatoes, green beans, rolls, nice salad, and a homemade chocolate cake. So I had found myself when I went back for seconds, and I came back up here. My seconds were about 8:30, and I remember finishing off the last bit of beef tips and really warm mashed potatoes, and maybe one more roll, and had that slice of chocolate cake and a big glass of red wine. Yeah, exactly. Somewhere along the way, I was smart enough to set what little sip of red wine I had off of my lap, and I don't remember waking up until about 2:30.
I mean, there's no better. There are few better sleeps than cold weather, big, thick, warm, hearty food, and nothing you have to do. Like, I don't have to be awake for anything.
That's exactly
and right. I could just lay down, and if I fall asleep for 10 hours, it's fine. If I only sleep for 2 hours, it's fine.
Both kids were home last night, so I wasn't worried about them anywhere in the world. Everybody was safe inside the house here. The temperature was just right. The food belly was full, just enough wine in me to have me feeling just right, and I had sports on the TVs in the background, that hum of just a play-by-play guy walking you through a 40-10 old alma mater win over Hoover, and next thing you know, I wake up to a text at about 2:47.
El Tigre says, it sucks waking up to go to bed. I agree. Like, you fall asleep in the chair or on the couch, and you wake up, and I have to go in there, brush my teeth, and I'm trying before I go to bed, and you're trying not to open your eyes, right? You're trying to brush your teeth, get everything on brush your teeth with your eyes closed before you go to bed.
See, I'm just the opposite of that. I like waking up and then moving to a different location, because at that point I feel like it's bonus sleep. At that point, I feel like it's overtime. At that point, this is extra innings. This is.
I'm trying to keep the sleep going. I don't want to lose the sleep. It is the Johnston RV Center.com Saturday preview. Johnston RV Center, I-65, exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur. Always online, JohnstonRVCenter.com. Also, thank you to Champy's world famous fried chicken. And don't forget to visit the store, nextround.store, to get all your Next Round gear, nextround.store. If you're watching us on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe and set your alerts. Give us a thumbs up everywhere, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. And make sure you retweet this show while you're watching it on Twitter, and share it on Facebook. And drop us some stuff in the chat room. We'll get to those games. All right, also at 11 o'clock, Fox Dunaway. This is the biggest early game of the day. Number 4, TCU is at Baylor. TCU is favored 2.5. We keep waiting for them to fall through the ice, Dunaway. Here's another opportunity in Waco, a 2.5-point favorite against a good Dave Aranda defense, but an offense that struggled some this year.
Kendre Miller is one of the better running backs in America. that we don't talk about. We talk about Bijan Robinson, but Kendre Miller outrushed him last week. He dropped 138 on that Texas defense. I don't know what it is about this TCU team that we don't think they're going to do it every week. I guess because one part of it is the respect we have for just how competitive the Big 12 has been top to bottom all year long. So we're sitting here thinking, well, TCU is, walking a high wire act on a lot of these weeks. And then they do their most complete game last week in beating Texas 17-10. And now they have to go on the road and play at Baylor and Dave Aranda. And they've had such a schizophrenic season at Baylor. But everyone keeps going, but Dave Aranda's defense, and they're in Waco, and TCU coming off that emotional win, back-to-back road games in the Big 12. The Big 12 as a whole just doesn't set up for a team to go unbeaten. And I think that's why everyone keeps thinking TCU is eventually going to lose. But if they don't lose this week, they'll beat Iowa State, we assume, next week, and then they'll be in the Big 12 championship game, likely against Kansas State. Kansas State clinches that spot. If they win today and Texas loses their game, then Kansas State is locked into the Big 12 championship game. So it is it's a big one for TCU for the playoffs, but it's also a big one for them to keep proving all of us wrong.
By the way, we rarely have lines on these games during the week. I'm just looking on scoresandodds.com. The Alabama-Austin P, that's an 11 o'clock kick as well. ESPN Plus, SEC Network Plus. A lot of confusion about that normally. If you get the SEC Network, you should also get SEC Plus, SEC Network Plus, without having to pay anything extra. That's what I'm always told. So I know it can be confusing. True? That's what I'm told, that if you get the SEC Network, I think the SEC always has to send this out when games like this are on, and every team plays one. Every school plays at least once a year a SEC Network stream-only game. Auburn's earlier this year. I'm trying to remember which one they played. Might have been the first game right out of the chute. I think it was. So every team does this, and I'm always told if you get the SEC Network, you also should have access to this game streaming-wise. So if you do not, all I can tell you is contact your provider, and maybe you'll get to see the second half. Because by the time you contact your provider and get it straightened out, it's going to be halftime. But all that said, Dunaway, Alabama's a 42.5-point favorite. Obviously, they're not going to lose this game. I have no idea which side I would take in this one. I probably would go Austin P here, but
what is the number you dropped out on me there?
Well, I'm sorry, 42.5 is what Scores and Odds has it right now.
42.5. I would take Alabama and give the 42.5.
Oh, would you now? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
What do you think? You just think that, so many young guys, you're still trying to let them score, things like that? Is that what would you, or just Austin Peay's that bad?
Yeah, no, I know Austin Peay's much improved from what they were 4 years ago, whenever it was that they went years without winning. I just believe that Alabama will run the football. That's the only thing, is that shortening of the game. But you will get your typical Nick Saban. You'll play the starters for most of the first half and probably a drive in the second half, unless it's really tremendously out of hand. And then you got to get Jalen Milroe in to get him some work. You'll get Ty Simpson some work. Just think about when you get down, Roydell gets more carries. You get down that running back depth chart a little bit, and the receivers, my God, they've been rotating 11 of those guys all season long. No knock on the first team offensive line, but I don't think the second team offensive line is much different than the first team offensive line. So I just don't see Alabama slowing down in the scoring department today against Austin Peay. I would give the 42.5. Okay,
I'll tell you one thing I would like to see is, Aaron Anderson was a guy we talked about all offseason. He had a really good camp. He's apparently back as close to 100% as he's been. If he gets some playing time, I'd like to see this guy in action, because he was a guy in the offseason that everybody talked about could take the top off the defense a little bit if it could develop. So that's what Alabama lacks right now, is a deep threat. I know it's a little late in the season to find that, but still, maybe for the future, this is a guy that you look at and say he could be a deep threat for the future. I bring this up because it's funny. Rico from Northport says, lose 2 games, they put us on pay-per-view. Dynasty over.
100%.
Yep. So yeah, you get that every team. Every team plays one of those. That's the way they're trying to grow SEC Network Digital. 1 o'clock. Speaking of having to stream, it's wild that this game is stream only. ESPN Plus. Kansas State at West Virginia. Kansas State, number 15. They're a 7.5-point favorite. Why this game is important? Well, it's important for a couple of reasons. Number one, Neil Brown probably coaching for his job right now at West Virginia. His athletics director, Shane Lyons, got fired this week. Brown is owed $20 million in a buyout if he's fired before January 1. So he's got that working in his favor. But he's got to win out to get bowl eligible. But on the other side of this, Dunaway, Kansas State is the team that TCU would play in the Big 12 championship game right now if the season ended today. So this is significant as far as, your path to a national championship playoff if you're TCU.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said it earlier, a Kansas State win today and a Texas loss, and Kansas State locks it in. So that's a big game there. And Deuce Vaughn is a great running back for Kansas State, but their quarterback situation, Will Ford and Adrian Martinez, is what has become interesting because Martinez is the one that orchestrated all the big wins throughout the early part of the season. But as we got to late in the year when Martinez got banged up a little bit, Will Howard has become just a dominant force for me. And I've almost think with his ability to throw the ball and a little bit of running, but really his ability to throw the ball, I think Kansas State's a better football team with Will Howard at quarterback.
I think that if you'll go look, their two best offensive performances this year have been with him at the helm instead of Martinez. It's strange to me they want to keep going back to Martinez because it seems like their offenses move better under Howard. So we'll see if obviously they want to answer that question before they play in the Big 12 championship game. And as you said, if they win today and Texas loses, they're a lock to do that. So be interesting to see how they sort that out. But that is that's a game of significance in the Big 12 today. A weird start time in the Pac-12, 1:15 on ESPN2. I mentioned that UCF and Navy start at 10 on ESPN2. The game following that is a 1:15 kick on ESPN2. Oregon State at Arizona State. Oregon State number 23. They're a 6.5-point favorite. This was your upset alert, right? You feared the fork in your upset alert.
I did. I mean, Oregon State has been. What are they? 7-3 now, but they are the more quiet 7-3 team I can remember because I was for some reason I was expecting a really good year out of Oregon State, and 7-3 is a good year by Oregon State standards, right?
Right.
Win today, like they should, they'd be 8-3, and then they'd have a fighting chance against Oregon to go 9-3, which nobody would clap back at. But for some reason, Oregon State played USC close. I just have not been blown away by this 7-3 Oregon State team, which is I guess a lot of respect to just what I expected of Oregon State going in. When LT told me, I said, it's been a little bit of a disappointing year, I said on the air about Oregon State. And he says, dude, they're 7-3. I was blown away that they were 7-3.
Yeah.
If you'd have said, give me what you think Oregon State's record was, I would have said 5-5.
All right, well, let me just for purposes of this discussion, pull up their schedule and I'll tell you who they've beat. And maybe this is how they've gotten to 7-3. Their wins are Boise State, which, by the way, Boise State's turned into a pretty good football team.
Yeah.
Now, maybe they weren't then.
That was the first game, right? Because we watched that game. It was watch that one.
Saturday night, they beat first Saturday night of the season. They beat Boise. They beat Fresno 35-32. They beat Montana State. Montana State's hosting game day behind me here at Dunaway.
That's right.
They lost by 3 to USC, a game I think they turned it over 4 or 5 times in that game, if I'm not mistaken. Could have easily beaten USC. They got blown out by Utah. They beat Stanford by 1. Stanford is awful. Beat them by 1. Beat Washington State 2 touchdowns. Beat Colorado. Lost by 3 to Washington and beat Cal last week. That's why you never hear about them because their wins are Cal, Colorado, Washington State, Stanford. Those are nothing games because the Pac-12, the bottom part of the Pac-12 is so bad this year.
Yeah, but if you look at their losses, a 1-point loss to USC and a 3-point loss to Washington, that tells you how good of a team it is that Oregon State is. So it probably tells you my upset alert was stupid. It was stupid. Don't go play that one. That's what it sounds like.
You never know. 1:30 NBC, number 18, Notre Dame hosting Boston College. Notre Dame favored 20.5 at this one. In this one at South Bend. I bring this up because, I guess if you're Ohio State and you want to try to have a path to this thing with a loss, you need Notre Dame to continue to play well. I guess that would help them. I don't know what that's going to look like for Ohio State, but it won't hurt them for Notre Dame to continue to remain in the top 15 if they could.
I would agree with you. I mean, 66 yards rushing is all Notre Dame had last week against Navy. That's concerning to me that they relied so much on the passing of Drew Pine last week. I mean, he threw it only 21 times, so they were trying to run the football. 34 rushes for 66 yards. So if Navy can shut them down, that's something I thought Notre Dame had fixed. I thought they had found their identity, and then Navy, especially late in that game, was able to control Notre Dame's offense a little bit. Drew Pine with 4 touchdowns is how Notre Dame won that game, but they had to hold on at the end. So there is a little concern about how good Notre Dame is playing, but this Boston College team is not good.
Nope,
so I like the Irish today.
So does Parker. Parker says, take the Irish, free money.
Yeah.
Free money play of the year.
I like that a lot, Parker.
You like that? It is the Johnston RV Center.com Saturday preview. Thank you to Johnston RV Center, I-65, exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur, always online, JohnstonRVCenter.com. Also, thank you to Champy's world famous fried chicken for bringing you the show. Don't forget to visit Sterling and the gang there with those world famous tamales, the great chicken, po' boys, great desserts and sides, all right there at Champy's world famous fried chicken. Make sure to give us a thumbs up wherever you're watching us, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. Also, share this show. Share it on Facebook, retweet it, and make sure you subscribe and set your alerts on YouTube. And also, don't forget to visit the store, nextround.store, nextround.store. One of your pick 3 games done away. Number 11, Penn State is on the road at Rutgers. Penn State laying 19.5, and you like the old Scarlet Knights in this one to at least get inside that number.
I do. I like Rutgers at home. I probably play them too much at home. I just am a big Greg Schiano fan, and this Penn State team runs the ball so well, but I don't know how well they throw it. So I'm going to ride with Rutgers today. I thought Rutgers would get Michigan State last week. They did play inside the number, so I did get that was my upset alert last week. So I got a point for the cover, but not 3 for the outright win last week. They lose 27-21 to State last week. I like them to get a big. And that was on the road. I like them to get a big conference home win today, or at least play it close inside the number. I like Rutgers to keep it tight, and wouldn't be shocked if Penn State has one of their games where they throw up on their shoes today and lose one they shouldn't lose. And James Franklin, this is the first. I mean, when's the last time we've been in a coaching carousel where James Franklin's name hasn't really been mentioned? Yep. Which makes me wonder: is this the year he leaves and goes somewhere else? Because every year his name is mentioned, and he's the one mentioning it a lot of the times, and he gets these huge pay raises. The one year I'm not hearing anything about James Franklin makes me wonder if this is the kind of year he skates off somewhere. Probably not, though.
Yeah, but I mean, the only open job he would realistically take would be Auburn, right?
Yeah.
I guess Nebraska. That's a huge step backwards in his own conference to take Nebraska.
Yeah, I would imagine. But if Lane does go, I mean, Ole Miss, I don't know if that would be something that would interest him or not.
Maybe. I guess I could potentially see Ole Miss. These next 3 games, Dunaway, conference games by a highly ranked team that if they sleepwalk, 2 of them I don't think could end in a loss. But anyway, let's do them all. Number 9, Clemson hosting Miami. Clemson 18.5-point favorite. Miami has been a massive disappointment this year. Massive disappointment. For Clemson, you just got to win the rest of your games and hope it falls right for you in terms of the college football playoff. But it starts today against Miami, where we keep waiting for Clemson's offense to get 100% right.
Yeah, but they do run the ball well. Phil Maffa and Will Shipley are great running backs, and they're both a threat to go over 100 yards every week. And you just, I don't know what Dabo will do in the offseason, but he is showing us he's going to ride with DJ Uiagalelei. It's Miami that I'm most interested in. Did they fix their problems offensively last week against Georgia Tech? And I'll remind you that, yes, it was just Georgia Tech, who is now 4-6, but they were 4-5 going into that game. And I was waiting to see what Miami does offensively, which is the only way they're going to have a chance to beat Clemson. So Jermaine Brown throws the football last week, 3 touchdowns, no picks, QBR 84.1. So they moved on at quarterback. But Knighton and Brown, their running game really cranked it up as they rushed for over 200 yards last week against Georgia Tech. Just enough life out of Miami to make me put that on one of my TVs this week to see how Miami plays at Clemson, where Clemson's won 39 in a row. And I expect it to be 40 today, but that game could be entertaining. And you started off the show talking about what a sleepy Saturday schedule it is, and it is. But there's also some potential games that, what can a team like Miami do with Clemson? Because the athletes they have at 5-5. Could they put together one of those magical, scary nights on the road in Death Valley? It'd be fun to watch that one for me.
So 2:30 ESPN on that one. 2:30 ABC is number 2 Ohio State at Maryland. Ohio State favored 26.5 points. This is just another one of those Big Ten sleepers for Ohio State to survive until they get to their main game of the year next week against Michigan.
Yeah, I'll be looking to see how healthy the running backs are. Henderson and Mayan Williams have been in and out with different injuries all year long. C.J. Stroud has had a little bit of a, great game, flat game, great game, flat game. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best receiver in the country, but that receiving core at times as a whole has been, less than impressive and I think mostly just because of the schedule they played. For Maryland, they have not been the same team since Talia Tungavaloa re-injured his knee. He's had that knee re-injured a couple of times throughout the year, and this is just a different Maryland team than we saw against Michigan earlier in the year, which was an entertaining football game that Michigan won. It was a really challenging game for Michigan. Not the same Maryland team this late in the year. So this is one of the, you always hate to compare scores, Brown, from, two teams playing the same team and comparing the outcomes. It's another example why that is a bad way to do things, because Maryland was a lot healthier playing at Michigan earlier this year and was a lot more competitive in that game. And Michigan got what I thought was a quality win over Maryland back then. It doesn't look like that now, big picture. This is a different Maryland team that Ohio State will play today. I like Ohio State big in this one because of the Tungavaloa injury.
2:30 CBS, number 1 Georgia at Kentucky. The Dogs favored 22.5 in this game at Kentucky. Georgia obviously has already clinched their way into Atlanta, but that was expected, right? So here is Kentucky now, and I mean, Mark Stoops is a guy that it seems like he gets close in some games like this, but he's never, I mean, to my knowledge, I can't think of just the win where you would say there's that big upset win over Georgia or Alabama or Tennessee or somebody like that. He wins a lot of games, but I look back on it, I can't think of the game like this one that he has gotten the win.
Not like this one. A couple of games, I guess people didn't expect him to win at the Swamp over the years. What more can you say about Georgia without making it sound like you're an Alabama homer, other than they are what Alabama used to be?
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
Aren't they? They are what Alabama.
They are. They are.
Yeah.
Jalen Carter is playing really, really well for that defense. Ringo is a terrific corner.
Yeah.
They're just, they lost Nolan Smith on that defense and haven't missed a beat.
Yeah. So their defense is going to be good. I have no problem Georgia laying 22.5 today and feeling really comfortable about that. In fact, I put that in my pick 3 yesterday too.
Yep.
And I love to watch, Stetson Bennett, who got another NIL deal this week and changed his name for the commercial from the mailman to the milkman, because sometimes the weather prevents the mailman from delivering, but the milkman always delivers. Ladd McConkey is a fun guy to watch. Last week in Starkville, he led the team in rushing and receiving, which is pretty crazy. What Georgia's good everywhere, and I like this Georgia team. And you can say, okay, they're receivers. If McConkey's your best receiver, how good are you at receiving? Well, you got 2 great tight ends that cover that up a little bit. So it's just a fun team to watch. I love Georgia, everything about Georgia.
The 3:00 window features Auburn and Western Kentucky. This game opened at 6.5, down to 5.5. It's stuck there all week. Auburn only a 5.5 point favorite over the Hilltoppers. And a lot of that Dunaway, really all of it, is because of Austin Reed, the number 4 passer in the nation in terms of yards per game, 31 touchdowns, 7 picks. Reed's a good quarterback. They throw it a lot under Tyson Helton, part of that Helton coaching clan. Clay is his brother. Kim is his father. It's a good football family that has always been known for good offense. And that's what Western Kentucky brings to this game, is a passing offense that can be difficult to slow down.
Yeah, 100%. And you just wonder, to me, how many times Carnell Williams can go to the emotional well, and get this team to to fight. And, Alabama's next week, so there'll be a lot of emotion in that. The first home game for Cornell with Texas A&M was a magical day down at Jordan-Hare Stadium this past Saturday night. So here we are in a tweener game against a no-name brand on the jersey, and you just wonder how well can Cornell and this crowd, what crowd will be there? Will it be packed again? Will they try to have the same atmosphere they had last week? Can they recreate that somewhere close for a Western Kentucky game on what is turning in, for some people, an extended off week with Thanksgiving coming up on Thursday? It'll be interesting to see what the atmosphere is like, and if Cornell can tap into that emotional well again and then redo it again next week for the Iron Bowl on the road. But I love the way this team runs the ball. I mean, when you can throw out duplications from Hunter and Bigsby last week at 121 each, rushing the football, and you run the ball 55 times last week, 55 official rushes in the scorebook last week. I love their commitment to the run, and maybe that's the way you beat Western Kentucky this week, is you run it right down their throat and keep them from having the ball.
4:30, ESPN2 is giving us some weird kick times today, Dunaway. They're trying to squeeze in a bunch of games here. We've got a 10 a.m., a 1:15, and a 4:30. You don't see a 4:30 kick time very often. But you get that one in Chapel Hill. Number 13, North Carolina, favored 3 touchdowns over Georgia Tech. I bring this up because Drake May has snuck into the Heisman conversation. I don't know that he can win it. I still think it's C.J. Stroud's to win, but Drake May's getting mentions, and this is the type of game. It's not a huge national stage, but if people start to pay attention to Drake May, he always has to put numbers up, Dunaway, because their defense can't close out games.
Yeah, I mean, the defense played great last week, holding Wake Forest to 34 by your standard.
Yes.
But North Carolina won at 36-34 last week. Drake May dropped 448 on Wake Forest last week. I love Josh Downs. There's a lot to love about that North Carolina passing attack. Georgia Tech, to me, down to their third string quarterback likely in this contest. They played great for Brent Key over there. You mentioned it this week. Bill O'Brien is one of the guys being mentioned for that head coaching job at Georgia Tech. Brent has been he's been the interim coach for most of the season. Much like with Cornell, he has gotten more out of this bunch than I think is on the roster. So hats off to Brent Key there. But now you're on the road at North Carolina. North Carolina sees the finish line and that shot at Clemson coming up. It's a big day, I think, for North Carolina here over Georgia Tech. I'd give the points.
I am told, Dunaway, that Bill O'Brien is the leading candidate at Georgia Tech, that's who the big power people at Georgia Tech want to go after. But I am told that the holdup in this, and here's the upshot for a lot of Alabama fans that are watching this. The holdup in this for Georgia Tech is O'Brien, I think, feels like he might be the offensive coordinator in New England next year. So I think he is weighing, do I want to go back to Belichick and coach the New England offense, which could lead to another NFL job? Or do I want to become a college football coach full-time and take the Georgia Tech job? I'm guaranteed a head coaching job on one hand, which has not been a great job. Now, he knows that program because he's been there for about 5 or 6 years as a GA and an assistant. So he knows what he's facing at Georgia Tech. Do I want to be a college football coach the rest of my life, which is probably my lot if I take this Georgia Tech job? Or do I want to take another crack in the NFL, go coach a couple of years with Belichick, and maybe parlay that into another NFL head coaching job? Who knows? Maybe when Belichick retires, you're the Patriots head coach. So I'm told that's kind of what is the balancing act. Now, the upshot for Alabama fans on that, you notice the one place I didn't mention in that scenario. I don't think he's back in Tuscaloosa next year.
Yeah, his 2 years in Tuscaloosa runs out when and likely right after the Iron Bowl. He won't hang around for a bowl game that is not a playoff bowl game. So it will not be one of those situations where you'll have you'll end up having some interim guy calling plays for Alabama in their bowl game they end up playing. Most likely, in my opinion, they'll let him, if he ends up being the head coach at Georgia Tech, go ahead and start doing that. If he's going to be the Patriots OC, then you don't have to worry about that. That he can't do that until next year. If I was him, I would take the Georgia Tech job. I'd go ahead and become a college head coach because I don't feel like the New England offensive job is trending in a fabulous direction. And if you go up there and it doesn't work, I don't know if you get that head coaching job you're wanting again in the NFL. But again, if you pass on the NFL this time, you probably never get back in because Belichick's probably the only guy that's going to hire you.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the question is, how do you feel about Mac Jones? The last time you were there, Tom Brady was the quarterback. Now you go back and Mac Jones is the quarterback. How do you feel about him moving forward? And that's no shot at Mac Jones. I'm just saying that's the decision Bill O'Brien has to take. But when he came to Alabama, he gave Nick Saban a 2-year commitment that he wasn't going to try to get back in the NFL or take another college head coaching job. He'll be here 2 years. That time has come up. To my knowledge, there has been no contract extension for Bill O'Brien. He was under a 2-year contract, which will expire at the end of this year. So I think he's out of Tuscaloosa. I think that's the takeaway for Alabama fans. Where he ends up, I do not know. I think I am like you. I think I take the Georgia Tech job. They're about to make more of a commitment. We've got you and I have a good mutual friend whose father played at Georgia Tech, and he has kept in touch with that program. And he's telling you and I that for the first time, the school president is going to open some of the endowment and help the football program out. So that's good news for Bill O'Brien. They'll get more involved in the NIL game. So I think you can improve on where Jeff Collins had this program. So that makes this a 5 or 6 year job. And hey, if you improve Georgia Tech Dunaway and you're Bill O'Brien, there'll be open jobs in the college game where he becomes that much more attractive at that point.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And it's exciting to me as a guy who's always sort of liked that Georgia Tech program a little bit to think about them putting a little bit more commitment into their athletics.
All right, it is the Johnston RV Center Saturday preview. Got a few more games to get to here, but you can get to Johnston RV Center and save. I-65 exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur. They're closing out the 22s to make room for the 23s, and now is the time to take advantage of that at Johnston RV Center. I-65 exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur, johnstonrvcenter.com. Also, thank you to Champy's world famous fried chicken. Go by there and get your great college football watch party food, the great tamales, chicken tenders, po' boys, the great sides, desserts right there at Champy's world famous fried chicken, just off 119. They're in Alabaster. And if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to set alerts, retweet us, share us on Facebook, like us in all those places, and on Twitch. And also, don't forget to watch that alert for when we go live. If you're following us on social media, you'll see it at Next Round Live, at Next Round Live. All right, night slate, Dunaway, Tennessee. 3 touchdowns at South Carolina. The number 5 balls is one of my pick 3. I just think Tennessee is on a mission right now to score as many points as possible, just in case they need style points. And that's bad news for our guy, Shane Beamer in South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, a good year so far for Shane Beamer and them, but I think the report is they'll be without their top 2 running backs, South Carolina, in this game, and they have not passed the ball fantastically with Spencer Rattler. So running the football becomes a necessity for the Gamecocks. And if you're without your top 2 guys, I think their second string running back tonight, if the injuries hold up, will be a tight end playing running back. So that's a bad situation for the Gamecocks going into what should be a high scoring affair, at least on the Tennessee side. How Jalen Hyatt, I was just watching some more highlights a few segments ago on Sports Center over there. And, you keep seeing highlights of against really good teams of Jalen Hyatt running wide open. And you just keep saying, how does this guy, and you started at the Alabama game for me, that's where I really noticed him running wide open. And every week there's a play or two where nobody's covering him. And that just shows you the pre-snap movements and the schemes that Josh Heupel has put together there, that you can scheme it to where Jalen Hyatt is running wide open. And
it's wild. Yeah.
And it happens every week. It happened last week against Missouri, 146 yards of receiving for Jalen Hyatt. Hendon Hooker's playing for the Heisman Trophy. This team's playing for a spot in the college football playoff. I agree with you here. It's all volunteers, in my opinion.
D-Leet says, is LT free to come and go for pre- and post-game? LT is in New Orleans to watch his Rams. I won't make any promises. But maybe at the tail end of the post-game show, we'll see if we can check in with him in New Orleans. Okay. We'll do it at the tail end just in case it's a complete and total disaster train wreck. We'll end the show. But I won't make any promises, but we'll try to do that. That could be entertaining.
But he is not awake right now.
I would imagine he is sound asleep somewhere in the Big Easy. Interesting game in Fayetteville tonight. Number 14, Ole Miss is at Arkansas. At this moment, Ole Miss is a 1.5-point favorite. Big storyline here is KJ Jefferson. I think if he plays Dunaway, Ole Miss is a tough spot for them. If he does not play, I think I like the Rebs here.
Well, I mean, against Alabama, they did a lot of things right, especially in that first half. And, I don't know how some Auburn I don't know how some Auburn people feel, but don't you think our Auburn friends believe that if they do get Lane Kiffin, that they're almost getting a package deal that they get Quinshon Junkins as well? Do you
There's
think
been a
most
lot
of
of speculation. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean he's a state of Alabama kid. There's just been a lot of speculation on that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like Auburn fans will watch this game thinking, "Oh, that's our next coach, and there's our next star running back, and Quinshon Junkins right there." Junkins has been unbelievable, and just that play call late in the game, that 35-yard run, when Alabama was in a preventative type defense trying to keep Ole Miss from driving the score, that play call was tremendous from Lane Kiffin, and Junkins taking it on a little cross through the right side of the line and going 35 yards. I love that Ole Miss running attack. I love what they're doing. I thought Jackson Dart actually played a pretty good game against Alabama until they took the run away from them late and forced him to be a drop back passer. I with or without KJ Jefferson, if Lane Kiffin is still engaged and this has been an okay week of practice, I like Ole Miss to win this game. And it's a lot for me on a stake bet too. This gets me to a second year of 9 wins, which would win me a stake. Lance did not think that he would ever get 2 9-win seasons at Ole Miss. So another win today is another stake for me.
Bedlam is tonight, ABC 6:30, number 22, Oklahoma State, +7. They're catching 7. They're number 22. They're catching 7 because they're in Oklahoma. Oklahoma wins this game every year. Two of the great rivalry names going today, the Brawl of the Wild, Montana State, where game day is located, and Bedlam. Now, those are not rivalries I've followed my entire life, but they are great rivalry names. But this is a rivalry in name only. Oklahoma has dominated this series over its 100 or so years, and they're a 7-point favorite again tonight, Dunaway.
Yeah, and you like them. I sort of lean Oklahoma State here because I think Spencer Sanders is going to play and give it a fighting chance. I don't know how effective he will be, but it's a you're right. Every year I think I take Oklahoma State, and every year I'm like, why did I take Oklahoma State? Because Brown tells me every year that they've won 2 times in 1,000 years.
It feels like it.
But I'm doing it again. I'm taking Oklahoma State again, and you've said it all week again. It's not a rivalry. Oklahoma always wins this one, and Oklahoma's at home. I don't know why I'm taking Oklahoma State in this one, but just the hint of Spencer Sanders coming back and the fact that Oklahoma's 5-5, and it has been such a disastrous of a year for them. I'm going to go Oklahoma State in this one.
Another game tonight that is a big historic rivalry, and it's got probably more meaning on it than it's had in a very long time because remember a couple things. USC is in the college football playoff fight right now, and the Pac-12 no longer has divisions. So it's going to be your top 2 teams playing for the championship. USC, UCLA. Victory Bell game, USC at the Rose Bowl. That doesn't really matter. There'll probably be more Trojan fans there. 7 o'clock Fox, 2.5-point favorite, the Trojans here in this game.
LT is all in on UCLA. DTR playing his final home game for UCLA after 5 years. I am, not just messing with Lance. I like USC in this game. I just think they'll score so many points. Caleb Williams is unbelievable. Now, the Travis Dye injury, running back, is something to keep an eye on. To me, this game comes down, can UCLA get Zach Charbonnet going? And Zach had 181 last week against Arizona in a loss, and he rushed for 181, and they only scored 28 points. So DTR did not have a great game last week. I think DTR plays well today, but the question is, can Zach Charbonnet run the ball against USC, who has had a hard time stopping people all year long? If Charbonnet can get going, UCLA can win this thing. But I think USC wins this one. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know what the betting line is. Do you have the total?
76 and a half.
76 and a half.
Yes.
I will take the over in that. Over 76 and a half.
Feels like the play right there. Do you know? Are they both wearing their home colors? I love it when they do that in this rivalry.
That is the plan last I heard. I think that is something they have brought back and kept that to be the case. Yes.
Yeah. I love that. Do you like that?
I do. I think I'd be okay if Alabama and Auburn did it.
My wife brought that up. We were watching the first part of game day because I was showing her the snow and all that and the set they had. and they were talking about this game on SportsCenter right before, and I mentioned to her, and she's like, "Why would Alabama and Auburn not do that? That would be cool." And I'm like, "I'd be all about it. I think it'd be Alabama and Tennessee used to do it. I think back in the day."
They did, and
Um,
the reason people got away from it was for television.
yeah, that's what I told her. Yeah,
I believe I'm not. I don't know this to be the case, but before television, I do think back in the old days that people wore their school colors, and I'm not sure they
my
had a
wife.
home and away jerseys.
Yeah, black and white TV. They had to have some sort of contrast so you could tell which team was which.
Yep.
And I said, "Now they were color TV." I do think, though, part of it, like I told her, if Bama and Mississippi State, for instance, both wore color, their home colors, that might be a little tricky in the pass game. I said, I
Yeah.
think they kind of stumbled into the idea that, hey, it helps a little bit in the pass game when I see the contrast of my receivers downfield, right?
Yeah, it'd be tough for Mississippi State and A&M. Yeah,
Yeah,
tough for Mississippi State and Alabama, Texas
yep,
A&M and Alabama,
yep,
Arkansas and
yep.
Alabama. You couldn't do it a lot in the SEC, but you could in some.
UAB's at LSU. We mentioned this earlier. This
Fun
may keep
game.
us a little bit later on the post game if it's tight. ESPN 2, 8 o'clock. UAB at number 6, LSU. Only a 2-touchdown dog. And I say only because I think just name brands, LSU already going to Atlanta. You would think that's got to be bigger than 2 touchdowns. Vegas is telling you this is not just a show up, roll the football out there and win game for LSU.
It's not, and I think with the way they rely on running the football so much every week that I'm not sure it ever is. For instance, against Arkansas, Jaden Daniels threw the ball 15 times. 15
Yeah.
times. That's all they threw it against a Arkansas team when they needed that win last week. I love Williams. I love Emory Jr. They're running backs at LSU, but Jaden Daniels is the guy that makes it go running the football. And he was so good at running the football against Alabama. But against Arkansas, he had 10 rushing yards. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that is.
That he killed Alabama running the football. But against Arkansas, he had 10 rushing yards. So stopping Jaden Daniels, much like Arkansas did last week, even though they couldn't win the game, but they had every chance to, is the key for UAB's defense. Now, UAB's got one of the best defenses in the country. I think they're 6th in the nation, maybe, or top 20 in the nation in scoring defense. They're really good against the rush. They're really good against the pass. I think LSU will be surprised at how good UAB's defense is tonight. UAB gets a lot of love for their rushing attack. Dwayne McBride's the number 1 rusher in the country right now, averaging 156 yards a game. They have depth at running back. Dylan Hopkins is back and playing. But they'll try to run the football against LSU. LSU only allows 140 yards rushing defense there, so they're pretty good at stopping the run. But to me, the big story in this game will be UAB's defense, and if they play up to potential, this could be in jeopardy in the fourth quarter for an LSU fan base that comes on a Saturday night wanting to thank this team for what has been a special year before they play their final games on the road.
One more before we go, and there is news on this game. It is a 9:30 ESPN kick, number 10 Utah at number 12 Oregon. Utah's favored 2.5. I was completely unaware that Bo Nix may not go in this game until Rick Neuheisel said it on our show yesterday. This morning, Pete Thamel of ESPN reporting it. It's a game time decision. If Nix feels like he can go, he'll go. If not, Ty Thompson gets his first start. And the line might be a little reflective of that, Dunaway, as Utah's favored 2.5 on the road in Eugene.
Yeah. I go back and I saw a little bit of the second half of that Oregon-Washington game last week, and Oregon has to be just killing themselves that they lost that football game. Just some big plays from Michael Penix Jr. was the difference in that game. I mean, it was one of those games where Oregon would have a good defensive play, huge letdown.
Yeah.
Good defensive play, huge letdown. And still had a chance to win that game at the end, and still had a chance to get it to overtime when Dan Lanning decided to go for it for fourth down. If they could go back to 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, I think Oregon would play it totally different and probably would still be in the college football playoff race today. Tough loss for them, and if Bo doesn't go tonight, it'll be another tough loss for them.
All right, pay attention to social media, your alerts, and we'll let you know when we're live after the late games tonight. Give this a thumbs up on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. Share us everywhere. Make sure you subscribe and set your alerts. Watch social media at Next Round Live. We'll tell you when we're going live. Thank you to Johnston RV Center, I-65, exit 304 in Coleman, 334 in Decatur. Always online, johnstonrvcenter.com. Dunaway has lit a candle in memory of what?
The college football season that is winding down now.
Don't do that, Dunaway. Champy's world famous fried chicken, great for your college football watch parties and great anytime. It's Alabaster on 119. Champy's world famous fried chicken. Don't do that. We won't have you for the post-game show. Dunaway, enjoy your football. Everybody enjoy your football. We'll see you guys coming up a little bit later on. Dunaway has blown out the candle.